Welcome in episode 7, Word of the Weiss. It is the best time of year because it is officially play-in week for the association, and the NBA playoffs start Saturday. And we are going to get in to the play-in games, to my picks, what to expect, all of that. But before we do, I am going to start a new thing today with this episode, and it is completely unoriginal, not original at all, very, very much stolen, and I will give credit where credit's due. One of my favorite podcasts, it's a sports podcast, it's called What's Right with Nick Wright, it's Nick Wright's show, and how he starts every episode, and I kind of feel like it's a pretty cool way, sometimes kind of funny, but I don't know, it's kind of a nice way to just get episodes started, is by mentioning what is not on the episode that day. So, stories going on around the NBA and the NFL and pop culture and just all of these things that deserve at least to be mentioned, but aren't, didn't make it to today's rundown of topics. So, with that said, what is not on today's episode? Episode 7, Word of the Weiss. Thank you for watching, listening, YouTube, Spotify, however you are, thank you. And what is not on today's episode? Playoff predictions and NBA award picks. So, Friday, next episode that comes out will be Friday or potentially Saturday morning before the playoffs officially begin Saturday afternoon. And in that episode is where I'm going to come to you with my official NBA picks, my MVP, Defensive Player of the Year, Coach of the Year, Rookie of the Year, every award. I'm going to come to you with my first, second, and third team All-NBA ballots. I'm going to come to you with my official playoff predictions. Who is winning it all? Who is making it out of each conference? Who is winning every series in the first round and beyond? All of that is coming in a special NBA postseason exclusive episode Friday night or Saturday morning. So none of that is on today's show. Today's show, we're going to focus more on the play-in games that are, coming here tonight, tomorrow, Thursday, Friday. I am recording this Tuesday afternoon at 3:22 p.m. So this is before the Heat and the Hawks play tonight, followed by the Lakers and Wolves. So by the time you're seeing this, those two games will have already happened. So you will know whether what I'm saying is right or wrong. What is not on today's show? Kenneth Lofton Jr. of the Memphis Grizzlies. First game called up to the pros, 42-14. LeBron crowning himself against the tanking Utah Jazz. Damian Lillard wants Jaylen Brown. And just invents new ways every day to say that he wants out without saying that he wants out. Because unless he's trading himself to the Celtics, Blazers don't really have anything to make that happen. DeMarcus Cousins says that he is currently the third best center in the NBA. Dwayne Casey steps down as the Pistons head coach, which is a bit surprising because, they got something building there with Jaden Ivey and Cade Cunningham, and James Wiseman's been playing decently well for them, and I still don't like how they got rid of Sadiq Bey, but they have a chance at Wemby this year, so whatever, but Dwayne Casey steps down there. My guy, Peyton Pritchard, 34-point triple-double in the Celtics' final regular season game. Shout out 8 Mile. Carson Palmer, former Bengal Carson Palmer, let me say, says that Joe Burrow is better than Patrick Mahomes. That is not on today's show. Devin White, this is actually very recent, I believe just an hour ago or so. Devin White requested a trade from the Tampa Bay Bucks. And yeah, I sooner rather than later, that team's going to be blown up with Evans and Godwin, and so we'll see how long, those guys stick around there. The movie Air, the movie about Michael Jordan and Nike and how, Air Jordan came to be, that whole with, Ben Affleck and Matt Damon. And the reason that's not on today's episode is simply because I haven't seen the movie yet. I definitely intend to. Looks awesome. Heard great things. I just haven't had time to go and see it yet. And finally, last episode, I said that the next episode, we'd talk some NFL draft. and some Florida Gators sports, football and basketball specifically, because God, the basketball team is recruiting. Todd Golden is doing his thing in the portal right now, but we just don't really have time today. So NFL draft is, talking about that is going to come closer to the actual draft itself, just because there's going to be so much NBA going on from Friday on for the next little while. So we will definitely do some draft talk, where I think guys are going and where guys should go, and so that'll come closer to the draft. But yeah, so with all of that said, let's get started with the NBA play-in games. And first, let me say before we get into each game and, my predictions and what to expect and why, let me just say the NBA is the best sports league in the world at adjusting based on based on, I don't want to say fan service, but at least taking into consideration what fans want and being willing to adjust. Now, it doesn't always work, but a lot of times it does. And the play-in game was a brilliant, brilliant thing to add by Adam Silver and everybody involved. It just adds so much to the playoffs, and I think it's really nice. It serves as a nice little ramp into the playoffs, build some momentum, kind of get that playoff atmosphere brewing a bit before we really get into the 7-game series. So, with that said, game 1 of the NBA play-in tournament tonight at 7:30, Hawks versus Heat in Miami. So, something really weird happened over the last 2 days. Apparently, a report came out that the Hawks are open to trading Trae Young. And every time a report comes out, the first thing that I've learned to think about after the initial shock of whatever is, okay, why did they, who did this report come from, and why did they tell whatever, journalists they told it? Why and when? And for it to come out right before the play-in game is just really, really, really strange. And what it makes me think is maybe the Hawks aren't so, how do I say, determined on winning the game. Whether it be because they don't want to play the Celtics or because they want a higher draft pick. I don't know. But I can't think of why a report would come out in this moment, right before the play-in game, if not for something going on within the Hawks organization outside of the fact of just, we want to win every game we play, and of course we want to, win this play-in game and move on. And so I don't know. It all that seems a little weird. Somebody asked Trae Young about this, and he said, I don't know, maybe it's true, maybe it isn't. That is a weird response. I don't know what's going on in Atlanta right now. So, with all of that said, yes, I do fully expect the Heat to win tonight. Personally, as a Celtics fan, I will be rooting for the Hawks. Now, don't get me wrong, the Celtics are going to steamroll through the Heat or the Hawks. The Heat just can't score points. And the Hawks, I don't know who Trae Young's going to guard. So the Celtics are going to run through either of them, but no player on either roster genuinely strikes fear in my heart outside of Jimmy Butler. Because Jimmy Butler does that. Jimmy Butler is the type of guy that, even if it isn't true, even if it's just, a pipe dream, you think they can win any series they play in. Just because of Jimmy Butler. He's one of those guys. And he's not a top 10 player in this league, but he's a top 10 guy when you think, I do not want to play him in the playoffs. He's in that top 10 for sure. So I'll be a subtle Hawks fan tonight, but I do think the Heat are going to pull out the win. I don't know what's going on with Trae Young and the Hawks right now. It's really weird. I thought that the Trae and DeJounte combo would actually work, because DeJounte's great at all the things Trae isn't great at. Defense being the top thing there. But I don't know, for whatever reason, they just haven't been very good this season. And so, yeah, I'm going with the Heat in that one. And then right after that, at 10 o'clock tonight, we got Lakers Wolves. And I'm not going to spend so much time on this because the Lakers are going to steamroll them very easily. The Wolves are a bad team, and now they're without their two best defensive players. Their two best defensive players, Jaden McDaniels, who would have guarded LeBron, he's now out for the season after punching a wall on the way back to the locker room. And Rudy Gobert, who would guard Anthony Davis. Now you can say Anthony Davis has demolished Rudy Gobert in every game he's played against him this season. And to that I say, true. But you also, who else is going to guard Anthony Davis? Is it going to Naz Reid? Carl Anthony Towns? I dare you to put Carl Anthony Towns on Anthony Davis. So the Lakers are going to roll him. I could spend an entire podcast just talking about the Wolves' dysfunction, and I mean, I love Anthony Edwards, and I think Anthony Edwards, to a much smaller degree, kind of falls in that same Jimmy Butler area. As far as like, if I was a Lakers fan, if I were a Lakers fan, I wouldn't want to play Anthony Edwards. I'd be afraid of Anthony Edwards, but I just don't think he's enough to lift such a dysfunctional team over someone with the pedigree like LeBron, like Anthony Davis, and that franchise. So tomorrow night comes Bulls Raptors. Oh, and I guess I should say, assuming that I am right on the Lakers and the Heat winning, that would mean Hawks. Oh, actually, wait, I'll get to that in a sec. Let me do tomorrow night's games. So tomorrow night, sorry, 7 o'clock, Bulls Raptors. I think the Bulls are going to roll them. I just think the Bulls are a better team, really top to bottom. I know the Raptors have more pedigree because of Fred VanVleet and because of Pascal Siakam and because of Nick Nurse, and they won a championship not very long ago at all. I know it feels like a long time ago, but it really wasn't. And the Bulls have essentially none, but I just think when you are at a point of the play-in game where neither team has really had great seasons, I think talent is able to win a game like that, a single elimination game. It's a lot tougher when it comes to 7-game series, because at that point, that's when pedigree and experience and things like that really come into play. But when you're at a single elimination game, and I mean, you got DeMar DeRozan and Zach LaVine, and you got Vooch, and you got Alex Caruso, and you got Ayo, and you got a lot of guys on this team that can really play. I think that's going to, make a big difference. And I know Pascal Siakam and Fred VanVleet are good players who have had good seasons, especially Siakam. He's had a super underrated season. But I don't really see a way that the Bulls, with the talent they have on their roster, aren't going to be able to win. I just can't see them going home without at least making the second round of the play-in. So for that reason, I am going to pick. Now, I will say, not extremely confident in that. Not as confident as I am in the Heat Hawks or Lakers Wolves. But if I had to pick, I would pick the Bulls to win that game. And then finally, the one I'm personally most excited for. Now, Heat Hawks could be a great game as well, but I'm kind of a little more nervous than excited for that one. But Thunder Pelicans, now that is going to be a fun game, because both of those teams have a guy that can go for 40 on any night, between Shai and Brandon Ingram. I mean, Brandon Ingram just did it a few weeks ago. Shai's been doing it all season long. If I were the the Nuggets, I should say. If I were the Nuggets, I would much prefer the Thunder to win than the Pelicans, because I think, like what I was saying before, when you get to a 7-game series, guys like CJ McCollum and Jonas Valanciunas can do real damage because of their experience and because of just how much time they've had in the league to learn how to win in playoff scenarios. Not that either of them have gone extremely far into the playoffs, but obviously CJ, with his time with Damian Lillard, has experience and all of that. I don't think either of them are going to beat the Nuggets, but if I were a Nuggets fan, I would be rooting for the Thunder tomorrow night. And Shai is great, and they might have the rookie of the year, arguably with J-Dub. I'd have Paulo, but I'm not going to kill you for wanting J-Dub. I mean, he's had such a good back half of the season. And then obviously Josh Giddey. Josh Giddey was my pick for rookie of the year back in the day, like it was a long time ago. So the Thunder have talent, but they're just not ready to win a playoff series yet. Like the Pelicans, I give a fighter's chance against the Nuggets, but the Thunder just aren't ready quite yet. So for my pick for that game, I am going to pick the New Orleans Pelicans. And like I was saying, though, when it comes to a single game elimination, all it takes is one player to take over. All it takes is a 40 piece from Shy, and you never know what could happen. So I'm not super confident. Really, the only playing game I'm very confident in is Lakers Wolves, and I feel like that's the same with everybody. Which, by the way, when that's the case, usually it's a little too good to be true. So watch out for the Wolves. But the other three, I mean, Toronto beat Chicago. I'm not going to be stunned. I mean, the Hawks beat the Heat. I'm not going to be stunned. I'd be happy, but not stunned. And then same thing here with the Pelicans and the Thunder. I wouldn't be stunned if the Thunder win. But, my picks officially for the playing games, for what it matters, is the Heat over the Hawks, the Lakers over the Wolves, the Bulls over the Raptors, and the Pelicans over the Thunder. And what that means in that scenario is that the Hawks would play the Raptors for the 8 seed, and the Pelicans would play the Thunder would play the Wolves. So in those games, in Hawks Raptors, oh man, I picked the Hawks. I picked the Hawks because Trae Young is the best player on that floor, and I know a lot of people are kind of crapping on him right now. But guys, Trae Young is a really, really damn good player who can take over a game. I mean, not long ago, he was quite literally running the city of New York in a playoff series and took his team to, was it the conference finals? I think they beat Philly to move on to the conference, or I don't remember exactly, but you know what I'm talking. Trae Young can lead a team, so I feel it's kind of disrespectful to pick him to go 0-2 in the play-in and completely miss the playoffs. So I do think that the Hawks would win that game. And then in the West, you would have the Timberwolves and the Thunder. And I see who is the best player in that series, Shy or Anthony Edwards. It's tough, but either way, I think Anthony Edwards has the better supporting cast. And I think the Thunder are in such a better position as a team right now. They have such a brighter future to look forward to. But between them and the Wolves, the Thunder aren't ready yet. And that's totally fine. They weren't even supposed to be here in the first place. The Wolves, you gotta sneak in as the 8 seed. You can't lose to the Lakers in the first round of the play-in and then lose to the Thunder or the Pelicans in the second round of the play-in and miss the playoffs entirely. You cannot do that. I just can't. I can't see that happening. How disastrous that would be for this franchise. So my official play-in picks, and then we're going to move on because there's some other things to talk about. But my official play-in picks, the 7 seed will end up being in the East, the Miami Heat, who will play the Celtics in the first round. I hope I'm wrong about that. The 8 seed will be the Atlanta Hawks, who will end up playing the Milwaukee Bucks in the first round. In the West, the Lakers will end up being the 7 seed playing the Memphis Grizzlies. Now, I do think the Lakers would rather play Denver, but I don't think they would risk losing tonight, just because you never know who could win a one game if they do fall to have to play the either the Pelicans or the Thunder. So I do Lakers 7 seed, 8 seed, Pelicans. Yes. Yeah. Sorry. This is a lot to keep on the mind right now. So I'm so sorry if I'm messing that up a little bit. But yeah, Pelicans and yeah, then I think the Thunder, the Raptors, and the Wolves. The Thunder, Raptors, Bulls miss the playoffs entirely. And I hope I did that right. I feel like that math doesn't add up. But you guys get what I'm trying to say. God, this is tough to do in my head, but I am going to move on to the other NBA news that kind of went on since last time we talked. So there's a new CBA in the NBA, which is pretty exciting because there is some major, major things that are changed. So with this new CBA, two things I really want to talk about. First thing, I love. Second thing, I don't. So for now on, players will have to play a minimum of 65 games in a season to even be considered for MVP, Defensive Player of the Year, Rookie of the Year, Sixth Man of the Year. For all of these awards, players will have to at least played 65 games. And I love that. Now, players don't, and players have already been voicing the fact that they don't, which is fine, which is expected. But look, as good as Kevin Durant's been this year, he's played less than 50 games. You can't put him on an All-NBA team if you play half a season. And I love the fact, because what I think this is going to do is it's not going to solve load management. I mean, guys like Kawhi, who don't really care about winning those awards, are still going to load manage. But guys like Embiid and Giannis and maybe Tatum and guys who really care about these awards and want to play to get them, as at least part of the reason they play, they're going to want to play at least 65 games, which is a lot of the season. If you play 65 games, not more, just 65, that means you only missed 17, which means you played over 80% of the season. So 65 is no small number. And I think that's a great thing because the league loses something when guys load manage and don't play in games. I mean, I know it's a cliche thing to say, and everybody says this, but seriously, imagine going to a game and spending, because NBA games can be expensive, going to a game and finding out that LeBron isn't playing, or that KD isn't playing, or that Kawhi isn't playing, or that one of these big name Jokic, Embiid, Tatum guys aren't playing because, I mean, it'll say sprained ankle or something on the injury report, but you know why they're really not playing. That sucks. You don't ever want that happening. And I think just because something won't solve the problem completely, and this can be said for a lot of things in life, people. Just because something won't solve the problem completely doesn't make it useless. This will help that problem be less of a problem, and therefore should be utilized. Players have to play 65 games now. You don't think that's going to affect if players sit out or not? Will it completely solve the problem? No. Will it affect it? Yes. Will it affect it in a way so that great players play more games? Yes. Is that a good thing? Hell yes, it is. Now, the other thing in this new CBA that the NBA and the Players Union agreed on is positionless All-NBA teams. And I know people's initial thoughts to this, and honestly, mine kind of were too, are positive. Like, good. Now Jokic and Embiid can both make an All-NBA team, or a first-team All-NBA. Because it's outrageous that Embiid hasn't made one yet, and Jokic has every single year. Well, Jokic is the MVP, so that's why he has been making them. But now people are saying, good, now we can have the best 5 players in the league all be first team. And I understand that, and I get why that would be something that you label as a good thing. It makes perfect sense to me. But what does that mean for historical precedent, though? Because now, look, the thing that Joel Embiid has suffered from the past few years, and this could be said for many players, but I'm going to use him as an example because he's the one most people think of. What he's been suffering from with these teams, you know, the fact that Jokic has been winning the MVPs, so he's been, you know, second teamer rather than a first teamer, and, you know, so on and so forth. That has been the case. That has been something players have suffered for throughout the entire history of basketball. Let me put it this way. If through the history of basketball, it was how it's going to be from now on, where the best 5 players in the league are first team, the second best 5 players in the league are second team, third best 5 players in the league are third team, and there are positionless teams. Do you know how drastically different that would make the resumes of so many all-time great players? The, the playing field is no longer even. From here on out, guys are going to have more first-team All-NBA teams than other guys throughout history simply because the format is now changed. How do you compare a guy like, oh God, I'm trying to think, a guy like Isaiah Thomas or one of those guards back in Jordan's, back in the Jordan era, who always finished second team because of Jordan or someone else's dominance, who has second teams but would have had way more first teams if this format was the case back then. How do you compare someone like that to someone, from here on out, who's going to have all the first teams in the world because it's positionless? It unbalances how we can compare players through history based on all NBA teams. And I know you may think that doesn't really matter. We really just look at MVPs and all-star games and in championships, and nobody really looks at all NBA teams. Well, that's not necessarily true. You look up any player's resume throughout history, look up Kareem Abdul-Jabbar resume, Michael Jordan resume, and it always shows one of the first bullet points is first team All NBAs, second team All NBAs, third team All NBAs. Because throughout history, what that has meant when you are first team All NBA, it means that you are one of the two best guards in the league. If you are second team, you are one of either the third or fourth best guard in the league. Third team, it tells you where you rank amongst your peers at that position. And now what it's going to mean is this is where you ranked in the league. If you're on first team, you're a top 5 player in the league. So it rewrites how we look at history for those 50 years, from now. Now they're going to look back and say, Joel Embiid has 15 first-team All-NBAs, and, this guy from way back then has 5. Well, yeah, because they changed the rules in Embiid's era to where the top 5 players make the All-NBA team rather than just the top 2 at that position. So you can't really compare those. Well, now we can't compare all NBA teams because they're changing. I don't like changing that rule. I just think it makes it tough to compare guys throughout history, and I don't really see I understand why people want it, because what I talked about before as far as, giving players who deserve first team, and it's move, on and on. But it just isn't worth it to me because of how long the history has been of it being a way other than that. So, in other NBA news, and I'm not going to beat a dead horse here, at least I'm going to try not to, but I respectfully would like my flowers when it comes to the Dallas Mavericks and the Kyrie Irving trade. I got crap for saying that it was I think the words I used to describe the trade when they made it, the day they traded for Kyrie, or at least when the episode 1 of the podcast came out, which was, I believe, a week or so after they traded for Kyrie, I believe the words I used to describe the trade were disaster, astronomical failure, objective failure, the first step in what will be the story of Luka eventually leaving. I think those are all the words and descriptions I used for them trading for Kyrie. And I'm not going to go back into why I said that and how I analyzed it. If you want to hear that, you can go back and listen to episode 1. I spent a decent amount of time on it. And this isn't Kyrie Irving hate. I spent not 2 hours. I spent an hour in the ESPN Gainesville newsroom the other day arguing, very, very loudly and aggressively arguing with some of my dear friends that Kyrie Irving is the most skilled offensive player I've ever seen in my life. And I got yelled at. It's Kobe. It's Allen Iverson. It's Kevin Durant. It's Michael Jordan. Sure, fine. That's your opinion. I think that Kyrie Irving is the most skilled offensive basketball player ever. So this is not Kyrie hate. I don't hate Kyrie Irving, but he cannot play with any star player other than LeBron James and be successful. That is history. That is what he's been since he left LeBron in Cleveland. He has been nothing but negative energy and a negative force and a negative aura onto teams that just lead to failure when he plays with them. That is history. That is what happened on Boston. That is what happened in Brooklyn. That is what happened in Dallas. When are you going to learn that he has not had success anywhere without LeBron James? And I know what you're probably thinking. The Nets were having a great year with him before, and then you just stop thinking. The Nets were 18-2 in their last 20 before. Yeah, before what? You mean before he requested a trade? Teams cannot win with Kyrie Irving unless LeBron James is on the roster. That is what we know, is that teams have not won with Kyrie Irving unless they have LeBron James on the roster. We know that they have not. Now it's the question of, can they? And I say no, because I haven't seen it. And if you say yes, then don't tell me when it's happened, because it hasn't. Tell me where it can happen. And if you think that's Dallas, I guess we'll just keep waiting and seeing, because it hasn't happened yet. And look, here's a stat for you. Take it how you want it. Dallas was the number 4 seed in the Western Conference the day they traded for Kyrie. Since they traded for him, they went 9-17. Let me just say that again. 9-17. That's not close to 500. That's not almost 500. That's not barely under 500. That is awful. And they missed the playoffs. Oh, sorry. They missed the play-in. There are 30 teams in the NBA. They are one of 10 teams to miss the play-in. They finished as a bottom 10 team in basketball. And they were the 4 seed when they traded for him. It isn't all Kyrie's fault, because Luka's got to take some blame for this. Mark Cuban's got to take a ton of blame for this, and Kyrie has to take some. Now, Luka, his blame falls in the fact that if you take the top 15 players in the league, Luka's the worst defender by far. Now, you might argue Trae Young. I don't know if he's a top 15 player in the league. That's why I'm not including him. You might argue Jokic. No. Luka is far worse defensive player than Nikola Jokic is. And Jokic isn't a good defensive player. But Luka is just almost unfathomably bad on that end. I mean, whether he's just not trying or whether he's just really that bad, I don't know. I can't ask him. I just know what I watch. And he just cannot guard. He does not guard. So he deserves blame for that, no doubt about it. But the thing about that is, he wasn't guarding before they traded for Kyrie either, and they were the 4 seed. So take that how you want it. Mark Cuban, he's the one who executed the trade for Kyrie Irving. He made a god-awful trade, and that is on him. He deserves blame for that. So it's not all on Kyrie. Kyrie didn't hold a gun to the head of Mark Cuban and say, trade for me. Kyrie doesn't tell Luka not to play defense. It's not all on Kyrie at all. But everywhere he goes since he left LeBron has ended up in flames. And as far as where he's going to end up next season, if you've talked to me in person, you know my thoughts on that. I will leave that for a future episode. But I'm not so sure it's going to be in Dallas. Let's move to the NFL for a little bit here. Big news out of Baltimore. I'm not particularly happy about it, in case you couldn't tell. Odell Beckham Jr. has signed a 1-year, $18 million deal with the Ravens. I believe it's 15 guaranteed. And first and foremost, let's just get out of the way the obvious. He did not just sign this contract because he knows Lamar is going back. And Lamar is definitely now returning because OBJ signed that deal. Stop. No, stop. That's the easy connection to make, but that's not what happened here. No other team is going to give Odell Beckham $15 million guaranteed dollars. You know who the best wide receiver was last season over the age of 30? Was it Marvin Jones? Maybe? I mean, Travis Kelce doesn't count. He's not a receiver. I mean, he basically is, but he's not, so I'm not counting him. But guys over 30 they're there are no great receivers over the age of 30. You don't pay a wide receiver over 30 years old, $15 million, who just is coming off a major injury. So no other team was going to give him that type of money. So yes, he signed for the money. But where I'm a little lost is Lamar's side of it. Because yes, obviously OBJ, would he have signed there if Lamar was already traded and they were starting Tyler Huntley guaranteed? Would OBJ have signed there? I believe, yeah, maybe for $15 million to be the wide receiver one on a team with a great defense and a great running game. Maybe, but Lamar is a fantastic football player. Lamar is a fantastic person. Lamar is a lot of great things. So I say this with the utmost respect. But God, Lamar Jackson is a horrible agent. I would never hire him to be my agent. Think about it. If you're the Baltimore Ravens and you have been in this hot and heavy contract dispute with Lamar Jackson for as long as you have been, I mean, he requested a trade, just everything that has gone on in the situation. And now you see Lamar posting on his Instagram FaceTime of him and OBJ. And then you see him and OBJ out at a club in Miami together. What do you think? You think, oh, hey guys, I don't think Lamar's going anywhere. I think he kind of wants to play with OBJ here. We don't have to give him that guaranteed deal. He's going to break. Why would Lamar post that of him and Odell Beckham? He just took away a large portion of his leverage. Because now if you're the Ravens, you're thinking exactly what I just said. He clearly wants to play with Odell Beckham. He's clearly friends with him. He's clearly happy that he signed as a Raven. He clearly played at least somewhat of a role in recruiting him because they were on FaceTime. So he probably wants to stay. So guys, take that, rip up that offer sheet we were about to give him for the fully guaranteed deal after the draft. We don't need to give him that anymore. He wants to be here anyway. Why would Lamar do that? I don't understand it. Now, the question that remains is, okay, Zach, do you think, does this change your mind that Lamar is now going to be a Raven going into next season? No, but I'm not. Before I was 99% sure he's done in Baltimore. Now I'm creeping my way closer to 50-50 because it just is so weird why he would, it's not weird that OBJ signed with the Ravens, like I said, because of the money. It's not weird that Lamar recruited him. What's weird is that Lamar posted about it on social media, literally a picture of him FaceTiming OBJ, and then went out to a nightclub in Miami with him. It's like at that point you're asking and you want people to know that you are invested in him as a Raven. In which case the Ravens front office says, sweet, why would we give him a fully guaranteed deal? He's coming back either way. He wants to be here. So I don't understand that. If you ask me today, Zach, does Lamar Jackson start next season as a Baltimore Raven? Actually, I'm going to plead the fifth and wait till a future episode to answer that question. Let's just say this. Last episode, I would have said no shot. And now my reaction is, well, as you see and or hear. So take that how you want it. So we're going to finish up today's episode with some pop culture talk, as I do on most episodes. So last week, I saw Super Mario Brothers movie, and it was... You gotta give it up for the Super Mario Brothers movie. I mean, it had such a important job. And it's not an easy job. And that's to live up to the source material given from the Super Mario Brothers. That means it needs to look good. It needs to sound good. Voice acting. The characters need to be accurately represented. And the story has to be coherent along with the games. You need to make Mario fans happy, and that is not an easy task. And I think they did it incredibly well. Now, the movie critic side of me had some problems with it. The story, there were a lot of plot holes. Some of the Bowser stuff, in particularly, I'm not going to get into spoilers. I'll just mention a tiny, tiny little spoiler. It really doesn't mean anything, but the singing stuff, like I understand obviously that that's a major plot point of the games is him vying for Peach and all of that, but the way they chose to represent that with like the singing and the piano and I don't know, that all kind of just made me a little uncomfortable. I thought it was not funny. I thought it was weird. Now, but a lot of people disagree with me. Like my friends who are probably even more bigger Mario fans than I am, or at least close, and my cousin who I actually went and saw it with, they disagree. They thought it was funny. They thought it was fun. So that's just my opinion. I thought it was weird. I thought it could have been done a little less awkwardly. But like all of those criticisms are the movie critic part of me. But the Mario fan part of me walked out of there with the biggest freaking grin on my face ever. Was having such a good time during the movie. And for this movie, this type of movie, what's perfect is if the movie critic side of me and the Mario fan of me just thought it was absolutely incredible and just loved it. But what's more important, if you have to pick one or the other to please more, it's the Mario fan part. And that goes for a lot of people. Because at the end of the day, it is a Mario movie, not a movie about Mario. It is a Mario movie. So you had to get the Mario stuff right. The story and the plot holes and all of those specific things you look for in like any movie you go see weren't nearly as important to get right as how the characters looked and how the characters were acted and voiced. God, how ironic is it that when I said voiced, my voice cracked? That's pretty good. That was not on purpose. So, and let me say really quickly, Chris Pratt, I, I, I gotta go back to back. Dude, Chris Pratt was so good. He got so much shit, and I was a person. I was very, a little a little hard on him, a little critical of him at first when I heard he was going to voice Mario. But God, he was so good. Charlie Day's Luigi was awesome. Jack Black as Bowser was really, really good. Anya Taylor-Joy as Peach was fantastic. Keegan Michael Key as Toad, so good. Seth Rogen as Donkey Kong. I love Seth Rogen and I think he's hilarious and I thought it was fine. It didn't bother me, but he was the one where the only one I kind of felt like I wouldn't have hated if he was maybe recasted into someone else. I just wasn't sure if I was really putting that together with Seth Rogen and Donkey Kong. Maybe that's just me though. But overall, for the most part, I thought everything was just voice acted really well. Everything looked awesome. The Rainbow Road sequence was like the coolest thing I've ever seen in my life. I had a really good time with it. So not perfect, but it satisfied the part of me that its number one job was to, the Mario fan in me. So I was happy with it. And apparently people are because, my God, it's a box office monster right now. I don't even want to get wrong how much money it's made so far. Maybe I can just find it on Twitter here, like, because Twitter already pulled up, but oh, breaking news. DeMarcus Cousins is signing with the Guanabo Mets of Puerto Rican Professional Basketball League. Good for him. Good for Boogie. But anyway, so yeah, I don't know exactly how much it's made, but I know it's a lot, and I think it's on track to be Illumination's highest grossing movie ever. So shout out Super Mario Brothers movie. Shout out Chris Pratt, and Jack Black, and Charlie Day, and Keegan Michael Key, and Anya Taylor-Joy, and Seth Rogen, and everybody who played a part in that movie, because I thought it was a really, really great time, and it did not disappoint me. So we got a trailer today, The Marvels. I was looking very much forward to this trailer and am looking very much forward to this movie more than most, simply because I loved Miss Marvel. I really hope I'm pronouncing this right, but Iman Vellani, I think that's her name. I thought she was incredible as Kamala Khan. I thought the show was a really, really good time. Obviously, I wasn't as hot on the Captain Marvel movie and her in Endgame and I had my problems with WandaVision, and Monica Rambeau as a character was fine, I guess, but I was really just excited for this movie, mostly for Nick Fury and Kamala Khan, and we got both of them in this trailer, which excited me, and I thought that was a lot of fun. But the only question I do have about this movie that I was hoping the trailer would answer, and it didn't really, was how and why are their powers connected, and are they body swapping? Because what we know about this movie is it's going to be a body swap comedy, but an action MCU movie kind of combined, which is interesting. Um, but I was kind of hoping to at least get an idea of why and how they're body swapping. Like, I get they don't want to give up everything in the trailer, but like right now I'm trying to think, do their power, obviously, other than being Miss Marvel and Captain Marvel, how do their powers relate to each other exactly? Like, what is the exact source behind their powers and why that would connect the way it is going to? I would have liked to at least get an idea of that in this trailer. But I got Nick Fury, I got Kamala Khan, I got some cool action. The cat is back. So I thought the trailer was cool. I'm looking forward to another one, and I am looking forward to the movie. So, take that with how you want. I do recommend Miss Marvel if you haven't seen it. I think it's a really fun show. It's not a world beater. It's not better than Hawkeye or Loki, but it's better than Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and it's better than She-Hulk. And I know that isn't saying a ton, but I thought it was a good time. And I think if you watch that show, it's only 6 episodes. I think it'll make you significantly more excited for this movie. So that's the Marvels. Also, I'm glad they got rid of that weird hair, that Endgame hair for Captain Marvel. So that's nice that they got rid of that. So, finally, last thing, House of the Dragon Season 2 began production today. That's super exciting, because if you know me, you know how I feel about House of the Dragon. I thought it was one of the best shows of 2022. So I'm looking very, very forward to House of the Dragon Season 2. So, with that said, I think that's everything today. That was a pretty efficient episode. We got NBA playing games tonight and tomorrow. We got the playoffs starting Saturday. I will see you guys before then. Episode 8, either Friday or Saturday before the playoffs start with it is going to be my official exclusive NBA end of season show. Award picks, playoff predictions, everything NBA. And if you know me, you know the NBA is it's at the deepest core of my heart. It is where my love for sports stemmed from, is the NBA. So I'm really excited for that. It's going to be a wild, wild, wild playoff race, specifically in the Western Conference. And man, it's going to be a good time, so I'm looking forward to that. So, until then, until we see each other for episode 8, that is it. Thanks for watching. As always, word of the Weiss.